Hello, this is Unlimited Splash, where we get better at Magic together through a new draft every day, and today we're doing something brand new for the channel, which is I will be analyzing some of my viewers' drafts. In my view, if you want to get better at pretty much any human activity, draft included, there are three components. You need to practice the thing. In this case, that means you should be drafting. You need to study the theory of the thing. So for example, my data deep dive videos, we were studying the theory of drafting. And here's the third part. Once you have practiced, don't just memory hole the game. Whenever you have a game that sharply diverges from your expectations for how you thought it would go, whether it's a draft that you thought was going to go really well and then it went terribly, or a draft that you thought would go terribly and then it went really well, that is extremely ripe fruit for you to review and learn something from it. I've done several videos where I've reviewed my own games in high stakes events. And that's important, but actually maybe even better than reviewing your own games is getting a fresh perspective on them. So today I'm going to give that fresh perspective to some people in the community who submitted games for review. Before we jump into that, I do want to say, honestly, a really heartfelt thanks to this community. The last few days around here have been completely wild. So I've been posting every single day on this channel since pretty much the start of the year. And just under 2 weeks ago, I was at 119 subs, which obviously, subs aren't everything. I'm doing this for my love of the game and because I love drafting and I want to share my love of drafting and I want to get better at draft. And I thought that if I try to get better at draft publicly, maybe it'll kind of lift all boats and other people will be able to get better right along with me by, following along and using the same kind of techniques that I use and develop to get better. But 119 felt like, just a good solid group of us and kind of sort of steady, responsible growth for a channel of this age. But the last few days have been absolutely unbelievable. So over just the next week, we rocketed up to what's now, 488. The reason I'm talking about this and the reason that I call this out and that I really want to say thank you very sincerely is, and I haven't mentioned this publicly before, but I had in my mind a goal for the number of subscribers or size of the channel that would be sort of a metric by the end of the year of, is there room for this kind of content? Is this a niche that makes any sense? Basically, I decided I would post daily every day for 2026. And then at the end of the year, if I was getting no traction and, it didn't really seem like there was a need for this in the community, then I would just get better on my own. Maybe I'd go back to posting once a week or not posting. But I wanted to give it a good year and see, how it was going before sort of making that call. And the milestone that I had in my mind for the year was if I can get from 0 subs to 500 subs by the end of the year, then I'll feel like there's not that I'll have achieved worldwide fame, but that will kind of feel like, okay, hey, there's a group that's interested in this. This niche is not full and drafting every day is not nothing. It's 1 to maybe at the outside 3 hours, or the data deep dive videos can even take longer, definitely longer than 3 hours to prepare and record. So if I was way below that 500 sub metric by the end of the year, I would probably be can probably spend my time in better ways if this just isn't really of interest to people. So to go from pretty much on track, a little bit behind schedule to 500 subs as of 2 weeks ago, I really thought as of 2 weeks ago, I might not get there. And, that's okay. To go from that to literally 12 subscribers away from my annual goal. And it's currently April 20, the year is not even a third of the way over. That is just unreal. That is just a completely surreal week for me. And like I say, it's not actually about the subs primarily. That was just the metric that I was using in my mind to kind of benchmark, is there sort of public interest in this sort of thing? And so the comments are even more, 10 times as meaningful to me as a subscriber count, 100, a million times as meaningful to me. Especially people saying things like, I forward my pre-release and it's partly because of you. When I do those Winnabox data videos, I hear people saying, every once in a while, someone will say, I won a box because of you. That kind of thing really warms my heart because, I'm someone who's really interested in doing things that are good for the world in addition to just doing things that are fun. Is it good for the world to have people be better at Magic cards? Not necessarily, but I think it's a lot more satisfying as humans if we're able to see returns for our efforts, right? And first of all, there's just joy in discovery. It's fun for us to get better together, because getting better is a puzzle. And I'm guessing if you're watching this channel, you're someone who really likes solving puzzles. Maybe you also have satisfaction in like winning and beating an opponent. I'm less interested in helping you do that per se, because your opponent's also a human being who, you know, deserves to have joy and pleasure in life. But in terms of helping you solve the puzzle of how to get good, I think that's just a good thing in the world. Or how to get better. I'm sure already good, but how to get better. And also the idea of growth, the idea that like you could draft, 10 times a day and have a 40% win rate. And sometimes you just can't unlock what it is that you're doing wrong and how to get better. And that can be a very frustrating place to be. So I also hope that I have a role in alleviating that frustration and just helping you direct your mindset at how to get better and giving you tools for improvement. Something that I think I'm good at in Magic and in gaming in general is not just keeping a level head and, not falling victim to tilt and anger and that kind of a thing. But more importantly, I feel those emotions too often. But being aware of when I'm feeling those emotions, that kind of meta thought process of, am I thinking in a way that is going to help me achieve my goal of winning this event? Or am I thinking in a way that is kind of self-sabotaging and also going to cause me to have less fun in the event? So helping people with tools like that is very especially meaningful to me. So anyways, these comments and just the community support and being so close to my annual goal with it only a third of the way over, this just, it's really unexpected, and it definitely makes me want to redouble my effort to produce good content for you that's, worthy of you investing your time in watching these videos. So thanks so much for joining the community. Thanks so much for the nice comments. If you're the person who tips me over to my annual goal of being the fit 500th subscriber, then, send me a screenshot or something of you doing it, and I'll give you something really special, a really special role in the Discord or something. It also has me thinking about ways to, make it worth your while and kind of give back to this community. And this game review session is definitely one of them. Another thing I'd like to announce is something I'm calling Data Day. So a lot of you found this channel through my data deep dive videos, probably the ones before Strixhaven pre-release. And while my main bread and butter on this channel is daily draft videos, I definitely want to keep up that data component, especially because it's what a lot of people came here looking for. So I'm going to aim for one data day every week, and it will be focused on exactly the video that you first saw here, exactly the same kind of thing, like what sort of cards are overdrafted, what sort of cards are underdrafted, what approach am I taking to win more drafts in the format, what does the data overall say about how the format is developing and evolving? Are there kind of hidden gems that maybe you're not necessarily prioritizing that you could prioritize a bit higher and get more wins? All that kind of a thing. I don't have a specific day when I'm going to post these, but I'll always try to make it crystal clear in the title and the thumbnail whether something is a draft video or a data day video. So if you're mainly here for the drafts, you can just, always know what you're getting when you click on something. And if you're here for the data, vice versa. Okay, without further ado, let's jump into some draft review. So this draft comes to us from Banana Giraffe in the Discord. Thank you so much, Banana Giraffe, for sharing your draft. I do want to set the stage a little bit by just saying I'm not trying to be like the expert coming in from on high to come in and critique your draft logs. I'm not like a pro player who's just going to speak super definitively. I'm just going to give you my impressions as a peer talking to another peer about how I might have approached this draft differently, and also things that I think you did really great. So this is a log from 17 lands of Banana Giraffe's draft. I just saw the first pick, but I'm going to turn off this like pick highlighter so that I can say what I would have done without being influenced by what you did. Although I did, take a look obviously later on, but here's what I think I would do in your shoes. So this is a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles draft. Right after this, we're going to have a bloomburrow draft. And the way I'll structure it is I'll just give feedback on pretty much the whole draft one after another. And then I'm going to pull out one game where I think I might have done something differently for each draft. And just give some constructive feedback on how I might have approached things differently. Okay. All right. So pack one, pick one. I completely agree that Pizza Face is the pick. I see that's what you took. I would take Pizza Face. So there is a decision here about, do you go for the gold card? That is, I would say, pretty clearly the most powerful card in the pack. I think it would be a hot take to single out anything else in this pack as being more powerful than Pizza Face. Just zoom in a little in case anyone's not familiar with the format. So what else would we take? I don't even know. I mean, I think you just go for Pizza Face, right? So it's a decision about, do you take the more powerful gold card or the less powerful not gold card? The thing is, like, Pizza Face is so much more powerful than everything else in the pack. I think it's just pretty clear that you go for the gold card. I guess if someone took like Grounded for Life with a strong preference to draft the white-black sneak deck, that would be something, but I think it's pretty much just Pizza Face. So I completely agree with that pick. Pack 1, pick 2. So here's the way that I would be looking at this pack. You have 3 uncommons, which are extremely unimpressive. Lord Dreg is like mediocre to actively a card I'm looking to not have in my deck. It's probably mediocre filler though. But pack 1, pick 2, I'm hoping to do better than mediocre filler usually. Venus, I would say, is a card I'm actively looking to not have in my deck. I had high hopes for this early in the format, but it did not pan out. And then Turtle Lair, I know there are cases where this card can be very powerful, but again, not on average a very powerful card. So I'm looking at the commons now. To me, the common that jumps out as the most powerful is Surveillance Cam. I love this card. It does mainly fit in the Is It deck. I guess it could go in an everything pizza build, but I just think it stands out for its power level in this pack. I would say it's the best card in the pack, kind of head and shoulders. So I would be very inclined to just take the Surveillance Cam here. I guess also maybe someone else might take, I don't know, Oroku Saki, the dual land. Yeah, I mean, but I would just be on Surveillance Cam here. So let's reveal Banana Giraffe's pick. So you went for the Lord Dreg. Speaking for myself, in my view, and other people might have different opinions, of course, but in my view, I think you're compromising too much on card quality already to try to get a card that goes together with your pack 1, pick 1. Not to like read too much into your motivations. You might just think Lord Dreg is totally awesome. So if you do, then that's kind of a hot take, but good for you. Then you have an original opinion, and you're kind of sticking to it and making decisions based on it. And that's a pretty awesome thing to do. So if you did this because you think Lord Dreg is better than I think it is, more power to you. But if it's intending to sort of fit a card together in the same deck as Pizza Face, I personally would approach this in a different way by saying, what is the most powerful card that I can take? And let's try to figure out where our deck is going to go based on what the sequence of most powerful cards is early in the draft, rather than trying to make something work and then kind of being told if it will work or not, later on in the pack, depending on whether that specific lane ends up being available. So here I would go with the Surveillance Cam. I would have gone with Pizza Face pick 1, but then I would go with Surveillance Cam here. All right, and then we get past this banger of a pack. So we have Baxter Stockman, a top card in the format. I mean, I consider this basically a bomb. Buzzbots, which is a very, very strong common. Kurai's Technique, I think, is fine but it would require bouncing over the black-white deck. Stomp by the Foot, solid removal. I guess Escape Tunnel could be good if you really like the 5-color deck. I think Ragamuffin Raptor is pretty solid. That's about what I would consider here. For me, I would have just taken the Surveillance Cam, so I would go for Baxter Stockman. And in fact, even if I hadn't taken the Surveillance Cam in the last pack, if I'd had to take Lord Dreg or whatever, I would probably still take Baxter Stockman here, given your first 2 picks. And here's one way to think about that. What you're getting by being able to play Pizza Face. Let's suppose that Pizza Face and Baxter Stockman are similarly powerful. I think that's a pretty fair assumption. You could argue one has the edge over the other, but they're like comparable cards. They're both signpost uncommons in a good archetype. So, and they both played out super, super well in the format. So, what you're getting by being able to play Pizza Face in your deck by sticking with green-black is about as good as what you're giving up by being able to play, by not being able to play Baxter Stockman, right? Here, if I suddenly jump into blue-red, I have a card that is just as much of a pull into blue-red, Baxter Stockman, as you currently have pulling you into green-black. And then why would I prefer to be in blue-red if I'm saying they're about the same? Well, then you have the importance of the signal that the person to your right and the person to their right have just passed you Surveillance Cam, and then both of them passed you Baxter Stockman, right? So that means they're probably not currently in blue-red. Well, one of them took a rare out of the pack it seems, and then one of them took another uncommon, but that neither of them took a Baxter Stockman. So you know, they could end up being in blue-red. Maybe they took a blue rare, and then later down the line, they'll end up in blue-red. But right now, what we're basically being told is they might be in green-black, right? They're probably not in blue-red. So you can already have a comparably powerful blue-red card to your most powerful green-black card, and also expect to get more powerful blue-red cards in the future. So that's why I would take Baxter Stockman here, and I would pretty much give up on the pizza face unless the signals start trending in the opposite direction later on. Picking Stomp by the Foot here, which is Banana Giraffe's pick, I think, again, in my mind, much less so than Lord Dreg, because Stomp by the Foot is a more powerful card than Lord Dreg is, in my view. But I think this is too much of a compromise to continue trying to play this deck. I will say, I want to caveat this with, it's very possible you just love the green-black deck, and you really want to play it much more than you want to play the blue-red deck. No shade on that at all. I'm giving this feedback in the expectation that this is a draft where you are purely just trying to find the best lane, make the best deck, and win. Also, I haven't said this yet, but it's very, very important to me that feedback here, that I'm giving feedback respectfully with a positive, constructive mindset. I have the same expectation about the comment section, okay? And critiques are fine, but anything that's less than totally polite and constructive, you will not be commenting in the channel anymore. So just, you know, just ground rules, okay? Okay, and then here, and I'm not gonna keep harping on this point. This is the last time I'll point it out, but at this point, I would be very happy with my decision to explore blue-red, right? Because I would have a Surveillance Cam, I would have a Baxter Stockman, and then pack 1, pick 4. I'm getting Brilliance Unleashed, which is like, in my view, even better than either Baxter Stockman or Pizza Face. That might be a hot take, but you know, I've had some really, really disgusting sequences with this card. So I would be very inclined. I would be very, very pleased if I had followed that inclination to go blue-red. And I will also say the second best card in the pack here, I think, is also blue-red. I think Buzzbots is the next best card. So I would be just very, very happy with this. And Donatello. It looks like blue-red is kind of wide open. Now, I do want to commend you, though, on taking the dual land. I think that's a highly respectable pick. Prioritizing dual lands is just great decision making this early in the draft. So that is a worthy pickup. And I think if the kind of blue-red signal weren't here, I would do the same thing. But I would definitely be pretty solidly in an is it lane at this point. I want to make this not just useful for Banana Giraffe, but actually also useful for everyone watching it, of course. And so I'm going to try to give some general tips based on what I see arising in these drafts. My first tip is I think this draft would benefit from a little bit more of what we call drafting the hard way. If you've heard of this, you might not have heard of it under this name, but pretty much every drafter has encountered this concept at some point. The idea is basically the beauty and difficulty of a Magic card draft is dancing on the knife's edge between what you want to do and what is available to you in the moment. The hardest skill to master in draft, but also the most important, is identifying what powerful cards are going to come your way based on small amounts of initial information in those first few picks. So every pick, you get more and more information about what the open lane is, but you also have fewer and fewer picks left to take advantage of that information. So you want to cotton on as early as possible to what you should be drafting in your seat. A approach to this that I try to stand by, but can be very hard and can kind of leave you feeling like you have a bit of a mess or a pile, is in the first few picks of the draft, at least 3 or 4 picks. I challenge you to do this. For at least 3 or 4 picks, just take the single best card in the pack. If the best card in pack 1, pick 1 is a green-black card, the best card in pack 1, pick 2 is a blue-red card, and then the best card in pack 1, pick 3 is a, 3-color Jund card or something, and you're just looking at cards that could never possibly go together in the same deck, then take them. Just take them. And the idea is basically, they're not all going to go in the same deck, but you are just going to speculate on a few different lanes that you're sort of being told are currently open, and then you're going to run them against each other. And then by the time you get to pick pack 1, pick 6, pick 7, pick 8, pick 9, you might have 4 cards that would go in one of those decks, 2 cards that would go in another one of those decks, and 1 card that would go in the third deck. You see what I'm saying? And then you know, this is my leader, this is my candidate. Unless something really shifts, I'm going to go in this direction. It does require this very uncomfortable thing, though, of sitting with uncertainty for the first few minutes of the draft and knowing that you don't have a confident expectation about what lane you're going to end up in. If you're interested in more, the canonical article that coined the term drafting the hard ways by Ben Stark, it was actually originally published like over a decade ago. I recommend going and reading it. It's actually very fast read, and it's just almost required reading for Magic drafters. Okay, back to the draft. I'm going to fast forward through some picks. There's not that much dramatic that happens. I will point out pack 1, pick 6 is very late for a surveillance cam, so I continue to think that blue-red was very open at this table. Mind Transfer Protocol also ended up playing out great in the format, but I will not harp on that too much. I think Ragamuffin Raptor, this is actually a nice confirmation, by the way. I'm not saying you were doing like something that was totally wrong. To be crystal clear, seeing a Ragamuffin Raptor here means, okay, I mean, you're getting solid green cards late. So you're not in like a completely closed off lane. I'd rather have been in blue-red here, but it's not like what you're doing is disastrous or anything, not by a long shot. Okay, then we go through the last few picks. You know, nothing too dramatic happens here. I basically agree with everything that you're doing. Okay, pack 2, pick 1. I have probably a small difference of opinion from you here. I love things like Transdimensional Bovine. I have a huge weakness for green-based ramp decks. I think Westwind Avatar is better enough that it's worth just picking up. This card played out great, and if you can pick up any like Frog Butlers or anything else, honestly, you might. I don't think you could wield a Transdimensional Bovine at this point in the format. I used to do that back in the day, but then people just realized the Everything Pizza deck was so good, so probably now people are prioritizing it. But anyways, I would say Westwind Avatar and Buzzbots would be pickups for me in a vacuum before Transdimensional Bovine. You're very far away from Buzzbots, but I would probably have gone for the Avatar. But okay, that's a pretty minor issue. For the next few picks, we go for, you know, just totally solid green commons. I like the draft approach here. I will say, I feel like you're getting a little cut, perhaps. Maybe not super cut, but like it is notable that they're like Lita is an amazing bomb for the white-black deck, and this is pick 3. So 2 people have already chosen not to take this Lita. That's actually kind of chaotic. I don't know what that means because you were passing. I guess I actually do understand it. You were passing basically no white, so good white will come to you from the left. That makes sense. I guess the person to your left is probably in the blue-red deck, the really good blue-red deck that went by. Yeah, everything kind of makes sense from that perspective. Although, I mean, well, pick 2, yeah, they could have just taken a rare over this Buzzbots. Okay, anyhow. This pack 2, pick 5 Frog Butler is amazing. I do not know what's happening at this table. The fact that there's a Frog Butler plus a Saved by the Shell, there's some chaos happening at this draft table. I actually get a little worried when chaotic things like this happen. I mean, I guess you were cutting green, so I guess it makes sense that the few people to your left are not taking green, but in a 5 archetype format, you know, what are they taking exactly? I'm not sure. Okay, because you're getting a lot of white and a lot of green and some good blue. Okay, and then another Frog Butler. So that's really interesting. I guess you're in the right spot. With the double Frog Butler. But by the way, this makes me even more want to have taken the Westwind Avatar instead of the Transdimensional Bovine, because now this is looking pretty redundant. But okay, there's no way you could have predicted that you were going to see 2 of arguably the best common in the format this late. Okay, and then the Bite spell comes around, which goes amazingly with your Frog Butlers. I mean, this is just like, I don't know what's happening anymore. This is awesome. So here, I mean, taking Grounded for life, I guess I can see the thinking. The idea is something like you don't have that much removal. And so you're thinking maybe you're going to splash white for the removal spell, or maybe you're just thinking like, I'm never going to play Michelangelo. There's kind of nothing. Here, I might value just trying to put someone in white. Like at the very end of pack 2, passing a card that you know you're not going to play can be useful for cementing the person to your left into an archetype. Imagine they're on the fence between black-green and black-white. You do not want the person to your left to be in black-green. And so, so passing them a really good white card late can help push them into black-white, and then you're going to get green pack 2. I learned this from a Friday Night Magic years ago, where I passed just out of like, okay, so hate drafting is never a good idea, right? Hate drafting is when you just take a card out of a pack because it's powerful. sometimes at Friday Night Magic, in pod drafting, it's like, I'm going to take this because I don't want someone to hypothetically beat me with it. That logic actually is bad enough, but setting that aside, in online draft, hate drafting is completely useless to you because you're passing a powerful card that's then going to go out there into the pool of all players, and almost certainly you will not have to face it. I'm not saying you're hate drafting, by the way. This is a bit of a diversion. This is not directed feedback for you, Banana Giraffe. But basically, I learned this the really hard way at Friday Night Magic when I was in, let's say, Rakdos, red-black. And my friend, it turns out, who was sitting to my left, sitting to my right, I'm passing to him pack 2. At the end of pack 2, I got second last pick, or third last pick and second last pick. I got the blue-red signposts uncommon versus something unplayable, like a basic land or some garbage card. And I took both of them. I took both of the blue-red signposts uncommon because it was, more powerful than the other card. And I was like, well, on balance, I'd rather the other people at the table have less powerful cards rather than they have more powerful cards. So I'll just take them. No harm done. Then pack 3, I got completely cut. I was like, I have no idea what's going on. Why am I so cut? What's happening to me? Well, the person who I took those blue-red signposts uncommons away from for no benefit to myself had been trying to decide between going blue-red and going red-black. And because I took the signposts uncommons, he said, well, red-black is actually like slightly better for me here than red-blue. And then he was in my exact color pair pack 3 and I got nothing. And then I, 1-2'd or 0-3'd Friday Night Magic because I completely shot myself in the foot. I took a card at the end of pack 2 that I could never use, 0 relevance to me. And if I had passed it to him, I would have put him into a different archetype from me. But because I withheld it from him, I caused him to completely cut me off. So I always think about what signals am I sending by this point in pack 2. If I pass a good card that's not in my colors, it's actually really helpful to me. It can actually really be helpful for clearing the way, pushing someone into a different color so that then they pass me the awesome stuff when the pack is coming back to the left. Okay, so all that to say here, I would be pretty content. I don't think you need the removal. Look, you have Death Toucher, Death Toucher, Death Toucher. You have Stomp by the Foot, and then you have a Tenderize with your triple Death Touchers. And this is only the end of pack 2, so you have a whole other pack to pick up removal. I do agree that you want more removal, but you're gonna find it's not an emergency situation where you need to invest in removal in a totally different color from what you're in right now. So here I would probably take either Bebop or Michelangelo. Cards I'm not looking to play, maybe Michelangelo just because it's cheaper, but it's not a disaster if you're playing a Michelangelo in your deck. So I would take the Michelangelo here, pass the Grounded for Life, and maybe just try to cement someone into white. Seems like they're not in white right now because they passed Alita, but I don't know what they're doing. Maybe they're scrambling for anything. So passing them a bit of a power outlier here might just be a nice way of giving them a clear idea of what to do. All right, and then we see basically nothing, pretty much nothing going on for the rest of the pack. All right, pack 3, pick 1. Let's see what we've got. This is like a like a kind of a nightmare pack. I mean, there's really nothing going on. I might take Guac and Marshmallow Pizza. I think there are a few different options. You could take the Genghis Frog because you do have the green-black dual land, which helps your mana if you decide to splash, and Escape Tunnel, and double Frog Butler, and you have Transdimensional Bovine. Okay, so you're actually set up pretty good for a splash. So I might take Genghis Frog. I might take Mutant Town to just even more solidify that I can splash. Take the Guac and Marshmallow. The thing about, but there's nothing like that really stands out to me here. So you're kind of looking for something to do. I guess maybe a Rokusaki could be fine, honestly. But you're kind of looking for something to do. You end up taking the Dawn and Leo, which I don't hate, but it worries me, if that makes sense. So Dawn and Leo is absolutely cracked. I mean, this card is unbelievable. So I can totally understand why you would want to take it. So we have a few questions. Does it go in your deck, and is it playable? So does it go in your deck? Like, would it be powerful in your deck? Yeah, you have some good enters effect, like Dawn and Leo flickering Ragamuffin Raptor. That's pretty sweet. Pizza Face, best case scenario, you have out a Pizza Face and a Ragamuffin Raptor, and you get to flicker them both, make a food and permanents leaving the battlefield. So it would be synergistic in your deck. Primordial Pachyderm has a enters ability. Oh, I mean, it goes with Michelangelo, I guess. So it's synergistic in your deck. It's not at its best like it is in the blue-red artifacts deck, but it is synergistic in your deck. But is it playable? You want to be really, really, really cautious about double pip splashes. That's something you can very rarely ever do. If you are splashing for a card that has a double pip, the probability of drawing two different sources of your off color is way lower than the probability of being able to draw just one for any mana base that's going to be able to consistently cast your main spells in your main two colors. So I do have a recommendation here. There's this guy, Frank Carson, who really does the math. I mean, he's a combinatorics expert who breaks down into extreme detail the number of sources that you need to cast spells of different mana costs. And I mean extreme detail. So I highly recommend this guy, Frank Carson. Just give it a quick look. He has this and he has a bunch of other posts. But that's the source, one of the sources that I get the intuition that splashing double pip off color cards is basically just not doable. You have to go a straight 3-color deck if you want to do that. And going straight 3 colors in draft is in a non-3-color format is almost never a good idea. You almost always want to be 2 colors or 2 colors with a small splash. And I know I'm unlimited splash, so if I'm saying this, you know it's got to be true. Sorry if you hear some very sad sounding cat yowls. My cat is sick. He is chronically ill, actually, and he's having a flare-up of his condition, but don't worry, he's getting the medicine and attention he needs. Okay, so I'm kind of with you on this Dawn and Leo pick, to be quite honest, after thinking about it, because, look, it's just so much better than everything else in your deck. And, hey, maybe by some miracle, you'll be able to play it. But I do want to emphasize it should kind of take a miracle to be able to play Dawn and Leo. Like, I don't know how many sources Frank Carson would tell us that you would need to make this happen, but it's got to be a lot of off-color sources. Maybe if people pass you like 3 more Frog Butlers or something. All right, next pack. Okay, I mean, this is awesome. You're picking up a pizza face here for your efforts. So you cleared green and black nicely. You're getting a pizza face, and life is good. And of course, you took it. So good work, awesome. I like this a lot. Here we get another good reward for our efforts, Westwind Avatar. I would be really happy with this after the double Frog Butler plus the Transdimensional Bovine. So I would snap that up in a heartbeat. You did as well. Good work. Here, this is like so wild to me. I guess it's not shocking. The people to your right seem allergic to blue-red, but like Casey Jones is just so good. For it to be here is kind of upsetting. But this to me, it actually feels like this is sort of the comeuppance, the sort of downside for... I shouldn't say comeuppance. It's not punishment. It's just like this is the issue with not following those blue-red signals pack 1. I would be very concerned someone close to you, to your right, who's passing you these packs is in green-black. And the issue with that is getting cut pack 3. So we'll see if that does happen. But this is worrisome to me. I would be a little scared here. I'm looking at a pack that has no green and black worth speaking of and an amazing red spell, right? So you take Zoo Escapees, there's not much to be done at this point, but I think if you had gone blue-red, you would be very happy with this Casey Jones being passed to you. And then again, we have, essentially no blue and red. I think maybe here I would take, we have essentially no green and black. Here I would maybe take Guac and Marshmallow or Ragamuffin Raptor. You're kind of full on 5 drops. So probably I would take the Guac and Marshmallow. I don't think there's any world I would be splashing for Ray Fillet, really. But look, we have a great blue-red card, Buzzbots, and a great blue-red card, Manhole Missile. So kind of the same story. And then you're kind of taking Donatello. Yeah, there's really not that much to be done. And yeah, you're kind of stuck taking sort of random cards that don't go in your deck. So... oh, wow. And we're getting a Genghis Frog. What were people doing to your right? They weren't in Boros. They weren't in Simic. They weren't in the Everything Pizza colors. They weren't in blue-red. And I don't even think they were in white-black because they're passing Last Ronin's Technique into Transdimensional Exile with a Leonardo leader in blue. I don't even know what's going on at this point. Oh, they're robots. I just realized this is a quick draft. Okay, they're bots who are drafting. Yeah, I guess that doesn't explain it, but it explains it a little bit more. I guess I'm not as surprised that the bots are kind of sowing chaos in your life. Okay, and then TCRI building, Koya, nobody, etc. So a huge takeaway for me here is just following the blue-red signal pack 1 would have really paid you off pack 3. If you'd been in blue-red, you would have gotten Dawn and Leo. You would have gotten... okay, the pizza face is like really nice, and Westwind Avatar, but it turns out these were not really signals. They were kind of, maybe there were several good green and black cards in these packs. People took them, or robots took them, So you were left with the second best, which turned out to be really good. But then it just completely dried up. So you would have had Don and Leo, then you would have had Casey Jones into a Buzzbot or Manhole Missile, into a Donatello, into a, I don't know what, nothing really in this pack, but then a Return to the Sewers or a Mind Transfer Protocol, a Zog, I guess, and then TCRI building, the dual land for your colors, and then a Nobody. So this would have been a pretty good pack for you if you had been blue-red, but it was kind of a mess as a green-black deck. The result is, unfortunately, you are a little short on playables. I count 21 cards here in green and black, and then you just have a lot of cards that you can't run. I would be inclined here to probably do a minor, either blue or white splash to hit 23 playables, either pop in Grounded for Life and Dimensional Exile, or Genghis Frog and Retro Mutation or something like that. Okay, now looking at your deck, first off, I love your lands. They're beautiful. Good taste. Great taste, Banana Giraffe. And I know my name is Unlimited Splash. I know this is kind of shocking coming from me. I think you went overboard with the splash. Having a mana base where your mana are kind of even in numbers across 3 different lands just is not something to do if you can possibly help it. Splashes in general should be small departures from a classic 9/8 mana base. Okay. The typical rule of thumb, and again, see Frank Karsten for all the details. The typical rule of thumb is if you're splashing for 1 pip, then you want 3 ways of generating that pip, whether that's like an Evolving Wilds or Undercity Tunnel, I guess, a basic land and a Frog Butler, or 3 different Frog Butlers. That's the ideal situation. The less that you can move your mana base away from a straight up 2-color deck, the better. So 3 Frog Butlers is like completely ideal. These are cards you probably want to be playing anyways. You like the ramp, you like the Death Touch, they're a creature, but they also give you 3 ways of generating another pip. The more and more that you shift your mana base away from the 9/8 split, the more games you're just going to lose to not hitting your mana. And so for that reason, to avoid playing these very even distributions of 3 different colors, it's best to try to restrict splashes to just being for powerful cards or cards that you really need. Like if you really need a piece of removal and you don't have any in your main colors, that's a splash you could make. If you have a huge mega bomb that has 1 pip of a different color, you can make that splash. I would try really hard to make your 3 pips come from sources other than just 3 basic lands. The difference between 9 mountains, 8 islands, or let's say 9 forests, 8 islands, and 3 Frog Butlers, the difference between that and just playing 7 forests, 7 islands, and 3 plains, right? Where you've decreased your number of forests and islands to make room for 3 of a different basic land. That difference is probably on average like winning or losing a game across the event. It's a big deal. So in my view, you have made too big a concession in the mana base with a 6-5-4 split. And the other little piece of feedback is I would try to just be splashing the cards that you really need. Like Dimensional Exile and Grounded for Life, I can see it if you basically feel like I really don't want to play these crappy Pain 101s, which I super respect and super, feel you on. That totally makes sense to me, but I would basically not ever splash for High Flying Ace or Eastwind Avatar. These cards are just not good enough to merit the hit tier mana base. If you ticked down the number of planes that you have to cut High Flying Ace, Eastwind Avatar, honestly Koya, I think you would just win more games. And so I'm running a little long, so I want to get over to Devbyrd's game, so I'll make this part quick. But looking at your list of games, so in the event, you ended up going 2-3. You actually managed not to lose any games to outright mana screw, which is good. But losing to your mana base doesn't always look like the most obvious mana screw in the world, where you just go 8 turns without drawing one of your main colors. Here's an example from your games where, and I'll just zoom in on your hand here. You start with 2 green sources and a bunch of white and black, so you have to mulligan. You get into this hand where you have 4 lands and a bunch of expensive cards. And now because you're on 6 cards, you kind of have to keep it, even though it's a pretty bad hand, right? Like you have 1 3-drop and then a 5-drop that like this needs to die in order for this to do anything. And then when we fast forward through the game, basically the way that you end up losing is that at a certain point, you kind of just run out of action. You like draw a bunch of lands, kind of go one for a long time. No one has anything left, but your opponent is left with a 4/4 and relevant equipment and stuff. If your mana base had been closer to the two color mana base with a small splash, you might not have had to mulligan your first hand. You might have just started out with more action in the game, and down the line you might have won. So thanks so much again, Banana Giraffe, for sharing this draft. I have two suggestions, two pieces of feedback. I would say it would be a good idea to focus on drafting the hard way, following signals, and not just following that pack one, pick one, or your strong preference if that was about having a preference for green, black. And also keeping your splashes to very close to two colors. And making sure that the cards that you're putting in on the splash are specifically powerful cards or cards that you need in your deck. All right, that's your homework. Okay, on to the next one, which comes from Devbyrd in the Discord. Thanks so much, Devbird, for sharing your draft. And once again, a heartfelt thanks to Banana Giraffe. I know it's like not easy to kind of put yourself out there and like have people observing your drafts. And I know because I do this every day, you know, and sometimes, you know, people find issues. And sometimes I just want to like make mistakes in silence and in private. So no, I super respect, like this really is how you get better. So super respect you sharing your drafts for us to all learn from together. And if you, the viewer, wants to have a future draft of yours analyzed, the way to do this is hop into my Discord. There's a link in the description of my channel and also in the description of this video. Free for anyone to join. Just click on the invite link, hop in. There's a game review channel. You can just pop a game in there. I might do it on video with your permission, or our community of limited enthusiasts is always ready to give you some feedback as well. So you might just get feedback in the Discord immediately. Okay, I'm going to try to keep this one to about 10 minutes, so I'll just focus on the highlights. We start out, and this is a bloomburrow draft, but don't worry if you don't know bloomburrow. I think these are general ideas that matter for everybody. So we have this annoying glitch with 17 lanes, which I've had as well, where you only get to see the pack one, pick one. It's hard to imagine you were wrong here, though. There's essentially no commons or uncommons in bloomburrow that I would take over a Valley Quest Caller, so 100% agree with this pick. What am I doing here after Valley Quest Caller? I think I'm enthusiastically snapping up this Burrow Guard Mentor, and that's exactly what you did. So no disagreement here. Such a strong card. And it's a nice bonus that it goes wonderfully with your pack one, pick one. Okay. Pack one, pick two. Let's see. Or pack three, I mean. Bloomburrow is a format where you really have to find the open lane. So I'm looking for any signal to hop over to a different lane. However, Castrol is really not a pull into birds. It looks like a super bomb. It looks really splashy. It just did not play out great in the format. It's just too little too late in such a fast format. I might honestly just go for Seasoned Warring Guard. Not an amazing card in a vacuum, but if we can just lock down rabbits, I guess I would be very happy. So as long as people are passing me that, I'd probably go for it. Okay, awesome. We're on the same page, Dev. Okay, well now we're getting past one of my favorite cards in any format ever. Bloomburrow just plays into all my worst impulses. I mean, I want to play this rabbits deck because you're so set up to do it well, but we just have nothing in rabbits. The best case scenario for the rabbits lane is I guess you're grabbing a pawn profit and seeing if you can squeeze it in and hoping that this pack is just a complete anomaly on not having any green or white. It's a tough spot. I can see why you submitted this draft for review. This would already have me feeling like, you know, tugging at my collar and sweating a little bit about why I had this awesome start. And then, do I not get to play my amazing setup of Valley Quest Caller into Burrow Guard Mentor? I'm a little, you shouldn't get attached to your first few picks as we just discussed, but I'm a little attached to playing those. Having said that, I love Lily Splash Mentor. So that's a nice consolation prize. I would be picking that up. And that's what you did. Perfect. Okay. All right. I would be drafting to you identically. By the way, I do want to say what I'm doing right now is a major way that I improved at draft. Looking at someone else's draft and predicting the pick that they'll make and then comparing their pick to your pick. I did this with Paul Cheon drafts. Love how Paul Cheon drafts. And I would literally sit there watching his videos. I would see the pack come by, hit pause. I would think about what I would pick if I were in his shoes. And then I would unpause and see if he made the same pick. And I would just do that over and over and over again for the whole draft. I would do that every day for like, there was a period of months where I was doing that most days with most of his daily videos. And that definitely made me get a lot better in a hurry. And the first time I had the confidence to play in one of these tournaments for stakes was when I did that with a Paul Cheon draft. And other than a few like incredibly unimportant picks around like pick 11 or whatever, I did exactly the same thing as him. I would have ended up with literally the exact same deck, plus or minus a few like fringe playable cards. And then he took that was in an arena open, and he went on to win $2,000 with that deck. And so I was like, okay, I'm sure I would have found a way to throw that all away in the gameplay portion of the tournament. But knowing that I would have had the same deck that he won $2,000 with, that was such a huge confidence boost for me to be like, okay, I can definitely play in these events. I don't know if I can win them. Maybe I need to find a similar way to improve at gameplay. But of course, you can always do the same thing with gameplay. At the start of a turn, pause, figure out how you would navigate the turn, and then unpause and see if the drafter does that. I know that Ben Werney of Lords of Limited did the same thing. He actually gave me that exact advice one time in his chat. So this is like a secret weapon to get really good at draft. I'm not sure you should do this with my videos because I'm kind of a crazy person, but I try to make it clear when I'm being a crazy person. In like a limited championship qualifier or something with stakes, I'm not just doing crazy stuff. So, you know, you can always see that with my videos when I'm not being like, when I'm not going for it. All right, this is a very interesting decision point here. So if you still wanted to keep the hope alive of the rabbits deck, you could always take this rabbit response, and but it's just not a very good card. Or also the Jungblade Bruiser could conceivably be a top end card in a rabbit deck, but I think we should not do that. I think we should go for one of the cards, one of the frogs cards. Unfortunately, we may have to give up on our first few picks, but that's just bloomburrow. Like, I know sometimes late in pack 2, I would still not know exactly what I was doing in bloomburrow because it's so important to set yourself up for a good pack 3 and be in the open lane. So here, I would probably take Plume-Creed Escort or Dazzling Denial. I have a very high opinion of both of these cards. Plume-Creed Escort used to be very high in the data early in the format, and then it fell a lot for some reason. I don't know why. I think it's probably, my personal theory is it's because when the format was new and people like knew the combat tricks, because it's all that we were playing for 2 months or whatever, Plume-Creed Escort was really good because people online had a good read on what they were trying to play around, like when to save it for removal and when to just play it out. Maybe as people got to know the format less, they got worse with using Plume-Creed Escort. But I think this card's actual power is more like how it originally looked in the data for that reason. So I think this is a very, very strong card, probably underdrafted at this point. Dazzling Denial is also very strong. These counter unless they pay 2 and sometimes counter unless they pay 4 have just played out really well in the last few years. So I would be on either one of these. I don't hate taking Sunshower Druid. It goes nicely with Lily Splash Mentor. You need to play to the board in bloomburrow, so having a Sunshower Druid to play early, you know, I don't hate that. It would be third in my pick order, but I don't hate this. Here you get an amazing reward in the Splash Lasher. This card is absolutely bonkers, especially if you can be flickering it with Lily Splash Mentor. I have a deep fear deep in my gut that I've sabotaged you here, so I'm really hoping that when we click pick, we are going to see that you highlighted Splash Lasher. Okay, phew. I was very scared that my love of Rudy Tooty caused you to take it here. This is definitely a moment to be picking Splash Lasher, so good for you. do as I do, not do as I say, not as I do. Take the Splash Lasher, yeah. Tree Guard Duo is awesome. So you're actually just getting set up now. As much as I'm sad about not getting to play these rabbits cards, you're getting set up. Like Tree Guard Duo is a great card here. After that, I don't know, maybe Hidden Grotto, but Tree Guard Duo, awesome. And so far, by the way, Dev, we would have made almost exactly the same picks. The Sunshower Druid, I would have played one of those blue 2-drops instead of, but everything else I would have done literally the exact same as you so far. Now, this is a little bit tough. I actually don't hate High Stride, so I would probably take it here. I don't really want to go over to like Mouse Trapper or even as far as Agate Assault. I think I want to see, because now we've cut green so consistently this pack, I think I want to stay cutting. I think I want to try to reap the rewards of that pack 2 by getting the green from everybody else. And then pack 3, hopefully by cutting green pack 2, we've scared people out of it. So I think I want to stay the course with green and just take the High Stride. Yeah, so I think maybe this is a little bit of like waffling back to the first position. I think we've gotten enough signals, 1, 2, 3, 4 consecutive signals that frogs are open, that we should just try to play frogs now unless proven otherwise. Because remember, our rabbits cards, these weren't signals. We opened the Valley Quest Caller. We got a Burrowguard Mentor pick 2, but that just means someone took a rare over this. It could have been any uncommon in the pack and it would have made its way to us. And then pick 3, we got a Seasoned Warrenguard, which is not even a very good card usually. So with frogs, we should now be leaning towards playing frogs because we have the benefit of all of these signals. Mouse Trapper is maybe not even as good a card as High Stride in terms of raw power. This card actually played out really well in the set. The untap as a surprise and reach in a set where flying was like a major way of converting grindy board stalls into victory. I think these are both really relevant abilities, and 1 mana is just really nice. You can just, you know, shoot it out anytime. So I would definitely go with the High Stride here. I think it's worth following the signal and not reverting to, you want to signals over power always. If you pick really powerful cards early and then you follow a bunch of signals away from those powerful cards, those signals outweigh the power that you started out with. Here, I'm definitely taking the Rudy Tooty. It's better than these lands in Bloomburrow because it puts a body on the board. That's just really important in the format. So again, I like that you took Rudy Tooty. Baker's Bane Duo does not belong. Pick 10. It does not belong here. This is one of the best commons in the format. 2-drop that gets bigger, that makes food. No. That's with synergistic creature types. No. Yeah. Yes. I'm all over that. You can flicker it with your Lily Splash Mentor to make extra food. Yes. Perfect. Here, Dire Downdraft is a heck of a card. Mind Spiral is not terrible either, but Dire Downdraft is way underdrafted. Yeah, I think this is I think this is a mistake. I would not take the random red playable. Dire Downdraft, it doesn't look super strong, so I can understand why you passed it up here. It looks like, oh, I'm like 0 for 1ing myself. The thing is with this card, creatures in Bloomburrow were often not bomby enough or big enough that people wanted to have them on top. This was often a straight up removal spell. This almost, not really, take this with a grain of salt, it almost reads 2 and a blue, an instant, destroy target creature. Almost. Don't quote me on that, but almost. That's just how it often played out, because in a lot of cases, people did not want to draw their random whatever 3/1 that is beating you down, and so you just kill it. Like, they just put it on the bottom of their library. And basically everything attacks in Bloomburrow, so you'll pretty much always get to play this for 3. So I think Dire Downdraft is a huge signal that blue is open, and I definitely would have taken it here. Fountainport Bell is not terrible. Yep, so I like that you took it. And Finch Formation is whatever as well. Like, you know, I mean, you don't want to be playing it, but it could totally go in your Frogs deck. All right, here in this pack, wow, what a high power pack. Warren Warleader is a top bomb in the format. If you're in Rabbits, it's amazing. Canine Curator was super strong. Not like a total bomb, nowhere near as good as a Warleader, but still quite a good card in green. Splash Portal is really nice in the Frogs deck. You have a good common in Baker's Bane Duo, but I'm slow rolling it because Hunter's Talent is as if it were a mythic. Like, this is just such an incredibly strong card. So here I would definitely take the Hunter's Talent. I think with the Warleader, and I'll stop giving pick by pick feedback because I feel like I have a clear kind of headline for what I think maybe could have gone better in the draft. I think you were kind of too hesitant about following the signals into Frogs. I think after you see like so many good Frogs cards in a row, Lily Splash Mentor, Sunshower Druid, Tree Guard Duo, Splash Lasher, then you're last picking like Baker's Bane Duos, 3-Tree Root Weavers, and so on. You literally last pick a, you know, like sub-playable blue card, but at least it means blue is like not many people at the table are picking it. At that point, it's like I'm Frogs unless strongly proven otherwise, because I've just gotten strong signals about Frogs. And Dire Downdraft, I know maybe you didn't like know how good a card it is. That's also a strong signal about blue being open. And now finding Hunter's Talent, I would say Hunter's Talent, it's maybe a little bit worse than Warren Warleader. It's a little worse than Warren Warleader, but not much. It's actually not that much worse. So I would not agree here with trying to keep the dream of Rabbits alive. If you count up the number of Rabbits that you have in your deck, like the number of Rabbits deck cards that could go in a Rabbits deck, it might be kind of similar to the number of Frogs cards, but that pales in comparison to the information you have about what everyone else at the table is doing. You know that Frogs is very open to your right, and white seems to not be open. So I think pay more heed to the signals. Hunter's Talent is an awesome card. You're perfectly happy to take it. I mean, you're thrilled to take it, actually. This is an amazing, amazing card for your deck. And there's no need to revert back to Rabbits and still be kind of split between two decks. Then you get a Valley Might Gauler. It's good in the Rabbits deck, but it would be awesome in the Frogs deck. I'll just go quickly through the next bunch. I would probably be on Overprotect here over Polywallop, but I don't hate taking Polywallop. Then, okay, now we're getting some good white, but you should expect to see good white after white was so cut coming to you pack 1. I'm not worried about the amount of white you're going to get pack 2. I'm worried about the amount of white you're going to get pack 3. So here again, I would not be kind of flipping back to the rabbits deck. I would be going for Polywallop, Tree Guard Duo, depending on my curve or creature count. Let's see, Thornfall Forager is a really, really good card. I mean, it's like perfectly fine, but it can find you like a Baker's Bane Duo, for example, right? So it's like, it's a nice card. It's a nice ramp card that also can give you value in the late game. So yeah, and then this is just way too late. I mean, wheeling a Hunter's Talent is like, no comment. I mean, yeah. Okay, and wheeling Overprotect as well. These are things that shouldn't really be happening. Okay, so let's see how things go pack 3 for you. It's very possible that you just get rewarded for cutting rabbits in pack 2, and maybe you end up with a really good rabbits deck. So let's see how it goes. You open some random black card, take a Carrot Cake. I don't hate that at all. I would be between Carrot Cake and Baker's Bane Duo. I mean, if I'm thinking rabbits like you are, yeah, don't hate Carrot Cake whatsoever. Sure, Baker's Bane Duo is perfectly fine here. Then how are we looking? Like, we do have good green, but white does seem to be getting cut, doesn't it? No white cards in this pack other than the birds card. And again, no white here. Now we're looking at a lot of red blue, a really weird density of red blue. Then green is so wide open. We have Hunter's Talent. By the way, if we were in blue, we would be able to take the Storm Chaser's Talent if we'd gone for the Frogs deck, right? There's a great blue card in this pack, Storm Chaser's Talent. This is a 1/1 that also just does a bunch of extra 1/1 for 1 prowess that also does a bunch of other extra stuff. And Daring Wave Rider is a really strong card as well. It can bring you back a Polywallop, I guess, or a Longstock Brawl. Yeah. So then I would be on Overprotect. Oh no, I would be on Hunter's Talent 100%. Here, okay, you're getting some white and not so much green. And now there's randomly a red card. This table is chaos. But then there's a Sunshower Druid and a Dire Downdraft. And here I would love to have the Dire Downdraft. So, and another Dire Downdraft, I would be downdrafting everything in sight after this. And a last pick Rudy 2D, which is just disrespect for that little guy. Glad you were there to scoop him up. So I have the same kind of feedback regarding drafting the hard way for you, Dev. I think, but it's not quite the same thing. For the first few picks, you were taking the best cards, and huge props to you for following those Frogs cards for as long as you did. You took a sequence of really strong Frogs cards. But my analysis is that pack 3, you did get cut out of white. You were not able to pick up pretty much any good Rabbits cards after pick 2 or pick 3 of pack 3. And I think that's because someone was in white. Someone was maybe playing mice like immediately to your right, or potentially someone who doesn't know how good Hunter's Talent is was even playing rabbits to your right, because the main green cards that we got were the Hunter's Talents pack 3. So I would definitely say follow the signals. For you, it's less about for the first few picks, take the best cards. You did that. But then after you get some strong signals, trust the signals. The signals are much more important than the strength of the cards you have already. When you're halfway through pack 1, or even by pack 2, pick 1, you really want to reap the rewards of following the signals pack 3. So you should be thinking about all of the power of cards that you're going to get pack 3 because you gave up a little bit of power from your pack 1, pick 2, and pick 3. You see what I'm saying? Your first 2 picks of the draft are the picks where you have the least information about what's going on at the table. You should be most ready to discard those, and discarding those for a more open lane is going to pay you off every single pick of pack 3. So you need to add up all the power differential of how much better your cards are going to be pack 3 from being in the open lane. And that is going to be way higher in almost every case than the power of the picks pack 1, pick 2, and pick 3. So you end up in this this rabbits deck where you definitely had some power in your deck because you followed the Valley Quest Caller, Beauregard Mentors, you got that Warren War Leader, and so on. You have these Hunter's Talents. I actually really like your deck in the end. Valley Might Caller as well. I really like your deck actually. I just think it would have been better if it were green blue. I think the white, because you got cut, you get your pack 1 pick 1 and your pack 3 pick 1. Other than that, it's not contributing that. And the Beauregard Mentors are really good. Other than that, though, it's not contributing pretty much anything. Banishing Light's not very good in this format. Neither is Seasoned Warren Guard. Intrepid Rabbit's good. And you do have the 2 Carrot Cakes, but I think if you add up all the power of blue cards you could have had, I think it would be higher. I took a close look at one of your games, and I just have one little specific piece of feedback, which is we reached this really interesting moment where your opponent kind of seems to be out of gas. You both still have 20 life. You've just been kind of one-for-oneing each other for a long time. You have some random foods and whatever, and then you have a Burrowguard Mentor, Tree Guard duo, and 2 removal spells in your hand, the Hunter's Talent and the Polywall. They have 2 cards in their hand that don't really seem to be creatures, or maybe it's something really expensive that's stuck in their hand. So you have this decision about what do I do. You can play the Burrowguard Mentor as a 1/1, or you can play the Tree Guard duo as a 3/4. And here's the decision that you made. You go ahead and play the Burrowguard Mentor, and then without them having a creature out, you cast the Hunter's Talent. I can see the logic. You're trying to just get, Hunter's Talent is a powerful card when it's on the board. And I think maybe what you're doing is you're trying to just get it to draw card effect online. But I think I would have approached this very differently. Essentially, because your opponent has been doing basically nothing, you have more cards in hand, you have tons of removal. I would just play the Tree Guard duo first off, probably. Or maybe I would just play the Burrowguard Mentor, do nothing else, and then next turn play the Tree Guard duo. And, then you're attacking for 4 with the Burrowguard Mentor, and then you have a 2/2 and a 3/4 in play with 2 removal spells to back them up. What essentially ended up happening is your opponent plays a Blacksmith's Talent, you play your Tree Guard duo, you go in as a 4/4. Okay, I like all of this. And then your opponent... you level some things up, you get to go start attacking. Then your opponent plays a Quake Tusk Boar. They equip their equipment onto the board with Blacksmith's Talent, and now they're attacking you with a 12/12, for 12 damage double strike, and then it's actually +1 from a Rabid Gnaw. So they end up bonking you for 14 in the head. And then suddenly you're in this weird spot where you're kind of behind. So basically my analysis about this is, and then you kind of end up just like really on the back foot. And this Quake Tusk Boar and a really, really tight race, it ends up taking you down. My analysis is the pivot point in this game is when you played the Burrowguard Mentor and then the Hunter's Talent. I would rather either just play Burrowguard Mentor or just play Tree Guard duo. Probably just play Burrowguard Mentor and save the Hunter's Talent. Here's my summary of my thinking on that. If you put a creature down, you're asking your opponent to match you, right? Match you resource for resource. Now I have 3 power on the board, or I have 6-7 power on the board. You have to do something. That's like a 3-turn clock for you. If I have a Burrowguard Mentor plus a Tree Guard duo, that's a 4-turn clock, I guess. So being ahead gives you the luxury of making your opponent answer what you're doing. And it's actually even harder for them to answer because you have all this removal stacked up in your hand. By using a removal spell, I think you're spending too much to get too little back. By playing the Hunter's Talent without having a creature to bite yet, you're just giving them a little bit more opportunity to set up what chess players call counterplay, which is when I'm ahead, you should be thinking about how do I lose this game? So the way that you ended up losing the game was your opponent just played a creature that you kind of didn't have enough gas to answer any longer, partially because you had played the Hunter's Talent. Like in the end, Hunter's Talent plus Longstock Brawl would have been enough to take down the Quake Tusk Boar. And you didn't actually end up drawing cards off of the Hunter's Talent anyways. It really didn't do that much for you in the end. So I would say when you're ahead, just take your foot a little bit off the gas pedal and let your opponent commit resources to trying to catch up with you. Your opponent may have to do suboptimal. Here's the thing. Being ahead gives you the advantage that your opponent might have to sacrifice value in their cards just to do things faster. Like maybe they don't get to use all the fancy modes on a multi-option spell because they just have to get one option out of it in order to catch up with you, right? And you, because you're ahead, you get the advantage that you have the luxury of sitting back and taking a little bit more time and trying to squeeze every last drop of juice out of the lemons that you have in your hand, if you know what I mean. So you're kind of giving up that advantage if you do things like try to put yourself even farther ahead by playing a card in a suboptimal way. So I would say when you're ahead, embrace the luxury. So for you, Devbird, just 2 pieces of feedback. Number 1, lean more on the signals that you're getting in the packs and trust the signals a little bit more compared to the power of the cards currently in your pool. And number 2, when you are ahead, embrace the luxury a little bit more. You can sit back just a little bit more. You don't need to spend all your cards to cement being ahead. It actually gives your opponent more information about what's going on and more of an opportunity to catch up after the fact. Okay, that was so yeah, but also thanks very much, Dev, for sharing the draft. Really appreciate it. That was going to be it for the video, but actually, as I was recording, I got a new submission from Llama Drama in the Discord. I just wanted to quickly fit this one in. I'll try to keep it to literally 5 minutes. But basically, so you start it with Camellia, which is a totally awesome way to start. Next pick, Stargaze is not a card that I personally have a very high opinion of. After Camellia, I would probably, be trying to lean squirrels if possible. It's just such a powerful card. So I might be on like Longstock Brawl or something. I'm really not sure. Kidnap and Spellguy are both good, but they're not powerful enough that I'm wanting to immediately be pulled away from my Camellia. So yeah, it's a tough spot, but I do think Stargaze is not a very good card in the format. In Bloomburrow, you really need to be playing to the board, and you also often just don't have life to spare because it's such an aggressive format. Here in this pack, I'd probably be on Sticky Tongue Sentinel. I love this card. It's super, super strong. But Star Charter is an interesting one. I guess maybe you're trying to take it to go with Stargaze, something like that. This just kind of ended up being a little bit too slow for the format. Understated 4-drop is a hard sell in Bloomburrow, but you don't have a very obvious pick over it. I'd probably be on the Sticky Tongue Sentinel, but that's just me. Okay, Corpse Ray Cultivator, I don't hate it because you're just trying to stick with the squirrel's dream, and there's nothing that's that big a pull into a different color. And then Stargaze. So here is where I think I would have a pretty noticeable departure. I would take Long River Lurker, and I'd be wondering if maybe I can actually do some kind of Sultai awesomeness with Long River Lurker. This card is super powerful, a really, really fun card to play with as well. So I have a soft spot for it. Putting 2 Stargazes in your deck is a very tough sell in Bloomburrow. It's just such a fast format and a very kind of aggressive format. Okay, Sunlit Soothsayer was okay. I don't know. Are you getting some signals to be read? No, not really. I mean, I get Assault, which is fine. I might just take the Rush Shield Rampager, I guess. Nothing very impressive in this pack, actually. So I can see this is a tough draft. Like, you started out with a really strong pull into green-black, but the signals are a little bit messy. Here, I would take Scales of Shale. This card's very strong. This card just ended up being very, very strong in the format. I know it doesn't look like a high priority, but it turns out it was just one of the best commons. Junkblade Bruiser is perfectly okay as well. I mean, Ravine Raider is fine, yeah, if you want to play an aggressive strategy, but I would say it's a little at odds with the Stargaze picks, because this is a very aggressive card and this is a very opposite of aggressive card. Although I guess I could see the thinking of like, I want to balance out my very slow picks with some very fast picks. Yeah, but I might mainly want to take high impact mid-range cards if I'm trying to make Stargaze work, more than cards that are only good in a deck that is really trying to beat down. Okay, and then I think Mind Spiral is the best card in this pack, so I would continue to be pulled a little bit more into blue. Rush Shield Rampager is a good pickup here. Huskbuster Swarm is perfectly fine. Yeah, and then we get 2 really good blue cards at the end, like Splash Portal. If you combine this with some of the Frog's value cards, we haven't really seen any yet, but it's actually quite good, can be quite good. It's just very synergistic, really depends on the deck that it's in. Calamitous Tide I like a lot, though. I don't hate this at all. I know we're just sort of taking the last few cards here. These are whatever scraps are coming our way, but I actually view this as a signal that blue is like pretty open at this table. Okay, here, Dowerport Mage I have a soft spot for, but turns out not to be the most powerful card. I might take 3 Tree Scribe. 2/3 for 2 was really good in this format. Scales of Shale is also a really good one. Tree Guard Duo, yeah, I mean, it's fine. This is a perfectly fine pick, in my view. Okay, Sunshower Druid, I might be, either on Sunshower Druid or Polywallop, but by this point, I'm probably leaning a little Sultai and might be taking the 3 Tree Root Weaver. But yeah, I mean, I don't hate taking Sunshower Druid here or Polywallop. Any of those would be just fine. Here, I would be feeling very good about my blue inclinations, because then I would be snapping up Daring Wave Rider, and I'd be really happy with that. I think you might be undervaluing 3 Tree Scribe. I would have taken it twice now when you took other cards, more expensive cards, both times, I think. Actually, both times you took a Tree Guard Duo over the 3 Tree Scribe. I think this card's actually maybe better in a vacuum. And also, you currently don't have 2-drop. So if we end up with curve problems, I would point to this as a moment when you could have had a really good 2-drop. Those 2 moments. Wix Patrol is amazing. This card is a huge pull into black. This is actually a huge reward. So I would definitely be on Wix Patrol here. And then a Lily Splash Mentor. So my frog inclinations would be paid off. But I would also say Baker's Bane Duo is better. I think I'm going to fast forward to your eventual deck. I think 2 takeaways that I have right now are, especially for bloomburrow, I think you're overvaluing expensive spells compared to cheap creatures. I think you've passed a sequence of very strong 2-drops that I think it would have been good to take in this format. Having said that, I think that's the exact opposite problem of most people online. So I think you're in a good place, actually. I think if you move one step towards the way that probably a lot of people draft, where they really emphasize like 2-drop creatures, then you'll be in a very good spot. Because I do think people tend to actually underestimate the value of some cards like Stargaze. I really like your I have very similar tastes to you. I really like your inclinations, Llama Drama. Stargaze is the type of card that I always really want to be good. So huge respect to you on that front. We have very similar tastes as drafters, but I think you kind of need to earn the right to play these cards like Stargaze by putting strong cards early in your curve that keep you alive. Bark Knuckle Boxer, love that you picked that up here. Cash Grab would have been fine as well. Here, I think you're specifically undervaluing Scales of Shale. I don't know if this is true for you about other combat tricks in general. Scales of Shale was just an awesome combat trick here, and you took a Sunspine Lynx that can't go in your deck. So I would definitely say, it's not so relevant for bloomburrow specifically until the next time it comes on flashback, but if you find yourself undervaluing combat tricks in general, then that's something to address. But maybe you're just specifically, didn't happen to know like how strong Scales of Shale is. And then we kind of get like a lot of red, but I think you're following the signals quite well. I think you very well, like you started with this Camellia, but I think you were ready to bounce away from it if need be. And I think, I think you're in a pretty open lane. So I don't think we have like a signals issue here. For you, I would say it's maybe more about the specific card evaluation. So for example, here, I don't view Treetop Sentries as a particularly good card at all. I'm pretty disappointed anytime I play this in my deck. If I'm picking it, pack 3, pick 1. I'm feeling really bad about that pack. So I would be really inclined to take the Glide Dive Duo here. I think this card's very strong. Pawn Profit could also be fine. Maybe Uncharted Haven if you view yourself as wanting to do a splash later on. But I would definitely, maybe even Junkblade Bruiser, but I would definitely be on the Glide Dive Duo. Overprotect, I'm very happy to see you take that here. Same thing with the Forager. Scrap Shooter is actually quite good. Daggerfang Duo is pretty good as well, but you don't really have a lot of graveyard synergies. I guess maybe you wanted the Squirrel to go with Camellia. By the way, this would have also been a reason to take some of those Baker's Bane Duos. But yeah, I think Scrap Shooter would be the pick here. So to me, my main takeaway is you did a great job of navigating the signals. I don't see any issue with the lane that you ended up in. I also like how you put together your deck in the end, but I do think although look at this, like you're leaving your Tree Guard Duos out after prioritizing them over really strong 2-drops. So I guess the 2-drops wouldn't have been very good in your deck because you didn't end up going frogs the way that I would have. So I guess I can kind of understand that. But I would say like maybe actually spending some time with just 17 lands data and just looking at how the cards are playing out in the format might be a nice way of calibrating your card evaluations. You have to take the win rate data with a grain of salt, as I always emphasize. So don't make that your card evaluations from now on. But if you just go and look at the card data page, things will pop out to you like if you look at the top cards by win rate and you look at the commons, Scales of Shale is number like 4 or 5 or something, number 6 in the format. If you're doing things like that where you're taking cards that can't go in your deck over like a top 5, top 6 common in the format, a lot of people are overusing 17 lands game in hand win rate data. I think that's a case of underusing it. So I would say try to just practice the specific card evaluation, by either, it could just be watching drafters who you enjoy watching. That's a nice way to tether your card evaluation to things that are working in the format. If you watch Palcheon trophy a draft at top 10 mythic and and he's putting Scales of Shale in his deck, that tells you something about that card. Or just scroll through the 17 lands win rate data. So thanks so much, Llama Drama, for sharing your draft. And another huge thanks to Banana Giraffe and Devbird for sharing your drafts as well. If you, the viewer, want to be included in the next episode of viewer draft feedback, then go ahead and join the Discord and drop your draft log in there. And if you did like this style of video, this is my first time ever analyzing other people's drafts on this channel. So if you like this style of video, let me know. If you hate it, also let me know. That's useful feedback for me. And until tomorrow, have tons of fun playing Magic, and don't be afraid to splash.